Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Stuff. Welcome to the new studio and the latest WYR Reforging, where we hang out and talk all about the news from Games Workshop in the last week, as well as today. When that's all said and done, I'm going to be just hanging out and painting a little bit because it's been a while since I hung out with some folks like you, and I thought that would be a really great way to start my Friday. So, if you could, just let me know in the chat. I'm going to pop it out here so I can take a look at it more easily from my angle. Go ahead and let me know if the video and audio is working for you. I just want to double check. I'm still moving some things around as far as like plugins and applications and that kind of stuff. So I want to make sure everything is working totally fine. And I know that the chat for some reason has this weird delay where it takes a bit of a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and ramble on here. So if you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome. I do try to do these every single Friday. And I'm going to be doing more of them now that I'm settled into my home. But essentially, I just hang out with people. We do lore videos during the week and great discussion topics. And then we just take some time to walk through the news, get to know each other a little bit more, and give you something to listen to while you paint along. So we do these pretty regularly. I want to at least do 2 a week going forward. But I try to do this in the mid-morning my time. So it's 10 a.m. here. For folks over in the UK and Europe and that kind of stuff to catch you as you're having a wonderful Friday evening. So I'm just waiting here for the chat to spring to life still, which I'm not sure why it's taken so long. Video and audio work. Thank you. My first comment here was from Vasilis. Thank you very much. So let's not waste any time. We're going to talk briefly about hobby progress, and for that I will go to the downward cam. Let me see how that looks. Not great. Let's take a look here. Let's do one of these numbers. A little better. Okay. Nope. There we go. So, for hobby progress, if you guys have been following and listening and that kind of stuff, basically I wanted to start 2 new projects. Okay, 40K is much more popular here than AOS is, and I want to be able to play games and all that kind of stuff. Weirdly enough, Warcry is too, which is sort of a strange thing. So I got a lot of stuff going on. First of all, we're going to talk about this big guy. This is a single Varengard. It was sent to me by friend, patron, follower, I don't know, viewer, and also a great painter, Craig from, I believe is it Chaos Mars Painting or something on Instagram? I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that. He changed his name a few times, so I got a little confused. Chaos Lord Mars, that's who he is. Basically, my plan for this guy, and this is who I'm going to be painting later on if you want to stick around, I'm going to do a deep, dark, nasty brown for the mount itself with some like bruised flesh. And then for the actual, like, all the plating and that kind of stuff, it's going to be a bone color with a deep, deep brass for the trim. And, yeah, that's kind of the idea there. I want to try out a new technique where, well, not a new technique. I've tried it before, but never on such large surfaces, where basically you do a shop debone for the armor and then you just apply skeleton horde contrast, and it just deepens that bone color and adds nice recesses to the corners and stuff. So that's what's going on there. And for those of you who have savvy eyes, this is an Imperial Fist Reaver, because I did grab one of the Space Wolves patrol boxes that came out recently, just to jumpstart my 40k army. I want to do some combat patrol once we can get back to gaming at some point in the future, I hope. So he's my test model. I think he turned out pretty well, and I'm not sure. The light's not picking him up. For some reason, this webcam doesn't like the light above it, but I'll get that sorted out. This kind of stuff is just the details, I suppose. Yeah, I'm going to do... so, basically, I have 2 projects going. I'm going to start a new AOS army, and I'm going to start a new 40k army. AOS army is in the mail. For those of you who are curious, I'm going to do Flesh Eater Courts. I said it was a surprise. I was at one point going to do Slaves to Darkness again with the new rules that came out in Broken Realms Marathi. But then I decided, you know what? I need to do an army that I've been wanting to do for a while. So I'm going to do Flesh Eater Courts. And because they are super like grotesque and kind of all over the place and like there's no uniformity, I wanted to challenge myself to paint an army that does have uniformity. And so my Imperial Fists are going to be perfectly legit, like index Astartes down to the squad markings and decals and everything. So I'm excited. I just want to try something different. And to be honest with you, I've always wanted a yellow army. I don't know why. Just because I love the boldness of the color, you know. I think it's absolutely great. So I like him quite a bit. Power Gamer, best army in the game. Is that... are you referring to Space Marines or are you referring to Flesh Eater Courts? I don't keep up with any of that. So, hobby progress, yeah, I mean, honestly, a large amount of my progress was simply getting all of this stuff set up, and then, yeah, and then I painted just this guy yesterday, and, honestly, besides that, it's just been a mad dash to crank out content. Because if you don't know, we are in the middle of the Broken Realms. So it's been a super fun series to cover. Let me get my light situated again here. There we go. That looks good. So it's just been a mad dash to get those videos done, as well as, of course, I moved cross country, so I've been building furniture, unpacking stuff, all that not fun stuff that you have to do when you move. Oh, Flesh Eater Court, throwback to your old build. Thank you so much. I love that. Yes, if you don't get the joke, it's when the first Flesh Eater Court book came out. Like, it was one of the first 4, I guess, Age of Sigmar battle tomes. I was like, this is the best army in the game, and I have since been laughed at because of that, because I made a bold stance on competitive play. But I said that because at the time, very few factions had any kind of recursion. So if a unit dies, you can bring them back, kind of a thing. And Flesh Eater Courts in the first one was one of those ones that allowed you to recoup models and that kind of stuff. Junius, I just joined the stream and I see Space Marines. No, Doug, don't join the dark side. I like it. I like them all. But Flesh Eater Courts is going to be my next project. It's just those took forever to hunt down the start collecting boxes because stock is kind of a problem everywhere. So it took me a bit to find them, but they are in the mail. So hopefully next stream or two we'll be building those and painting them up. I haven't decided on a paint scheme for them yet, though. I do have an idea for a lore idea. Because lore-wise, my favorite of them is the blister skin. But I don't like the paint scheme. Okay, so blister skin, if you don't know, basically they're like these religious zealots that worship the sun, and they take their religion wherever they go. And if you know some of the videos I've mentioned it, I love this idea of thematically, I don't love the idea, it's actually a terrible thing, of just like religious crusades and that kind of stuff. I liked Menoth in War Machine and Hordes for that exact reason. I do like Sisters of Battle and that kind of stuff because of the purging, you know, just the zeal and the fire and the totally misguided attempts to make the world a better place, quite frankly. If that music gets too loud, let me know. I can't tell if it's just the speakers on my end or not. But anyway, so that's what I like. But I don't like their paint scheme. And so I wanted to kind of create my own story around, like, what does my court worship, right? And so I want to have my my leader be like a high inquisitor and that kind of stuff. So I want to kind of make my own format that way. And I'm still kind of brewing it in my head. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. So I would appreciate any suggestions in the comments down below. But that's what's going on with the Flesh Eater Courts. So I'm very excited to jump into them. I wanted an army that was not very complicated. And honestly, they have just a few war scrolls. It's a lot of kit bashing opportunities. They just do some cool stuff. They have great spells. And I like that kind of stuff. You know, it seems like a very classic army, much in the same way that I think War Clans is, you know, where it's just run forward and punch stuff, and you don't got like a god on the table or anything like that. Chapter Master Valric must be pleased. Oh, the channel Valric. Yeah, actually, I just found him actually because I was looking up. He had a fantastic video on how to paint Imperial Fist yellow that I liked quite a bit. Very cool stuff. Arcanaut Admiral, Broken Realms content has been awesome. Thank you so much. It's been really fun to dive in. Honestly, those are my favorite kind of books. Like, as much as I love covering Battletome stuff, the thing about Battletomes is they're always written in a way that every unit is the best thing in the world, and every army is like an apocalyptic level threat, and it's just not the way it is on the board. But in some of these stories, when you see those units in context with other ones, as they fight and they move and they make all kinds of deals and stuff, like the Deepkin attacking Hagnar kind of a thing. Like, that's just fun to read, because seeing them in context is much more fun than essentially a battle tome is propaganda for that army, right? Everything is about how great they are. So I like it. Jumped in at odd time, 100%. You talking 40k with the High Inquisitor. Oh, well, no, the Inquisitor thing's for my Flesh Eater courts. Let's see. Hey, everybody. Okay, so we got some folks pouring in. What we're going to do now is going to go over to the Warhammer community page and just have a look at what's been going on. I do this every week, every Friday, just to kind of catch up on the news. And let's see, we didn't actually miss much. There wasn't a ton that really caught my eye. There's some cool models, of course. But honestly, in terms of like articles that just stood out to me, I am now interested in Blood Bowl again. Now, I've gotten some flack for my opinion on the current edition of Blood Bowl in the comments. People are always nice about it, but essentially, I don't care for how I say complex. People have said, no, Doug, you're wrong. It's not complex. There's a lot of rule stacking that happens in the current edition of Blood Bowl that, to me, makes it very unwieldy and not welcoming to new players. However, it does seem that they really are adjusting that with, going to the model of the 2-up and the 4-up and all those kinds of things that are much, much more easy to understand. And honestly, they kind of fit in line with Games Workshop's modern game design and game lingo and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Zaku says, Flesh Eater courts are awesome. I love the Crypt Horror army. Yes, that's honestly, I don't want to do a whole lot of ghouls. I want to focus on Crypt Horrors. So, yeah. Let's see. Halloween team honestly sold me. Yeah, it's awesome. So, yeah, I'm not going to go into the details of this article, but essentially I just wanted to chat about the fact that it just seems very interesting and very welcoming, and that I just honestly, I don't know, I couldn't ask for more, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, they go through a few things as far as tackle zones and who's open, who's blocked, and I like that quite a bit. As long as the we would call it a campaign system in AOS. It's called obviously a season in Blood Bowl because it's, your players advance and they get worse and they get injured and killed and all this kinds of stuff. As long as those things are pretty easy to follow, I'll be very excited for this game. But the reason I love Blood Bowl, at least the idea of it, is because if you remember when Warcry came out, and I still love Warcry. I was going to meet up with a guy this weekend to play some games, and then basically Iowa came down and said, like, no gaming spaces. And so every store locally had to close theirs. Anyway, the reason I love Warcry is because I said that it is the least amount of work to have those memorable laugh experiences that you remember, several months or even years after the game is over. And I you know what I mean? Like, people complain about the rule set being too simplistic, but man, when, my Untamed Beast guy hooks a spear, stabs a dude, and pulls him off a shelf and he takes fall damage, that's so freaking cool. And I just remember doing that to my buddy, and I was just like, this is neat. And that's the thing, is it's the least amount of work to get there. That's my whole point. If this edition of Blood Bowl can deliver on that same idea, the core concepts in Blood Bowl are hilarious and very memorable. Like picking up a little guy who has the ball, right? Like, let's say one of these little grot dudes has the ball, and Ogre picks him up and just chucks him up the field like the football. I love that stuff. You're tripping each other, you're slamming each other. You have the dwarves have like a literal death roller machine that they take illegally, and they just like drive it up the field. It's just the coolest stuff. It's so absurd, so ridiculous. And again, as long as they can deliver on that, lowering the barrier of how many rules you have to know to start having those memorable, fun experiences, it's going to knock it out of the park. So, very, very excited to see what this looks like. Love that Halloween guy scheme with the little flames on his back, on his armor. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. That's pretty much it for Blood Bowl. Like, I'm not going to, like, stop everything and cover it because I don't have a copy. And it's not super high on my priority list, but it is something that I do want to check out in the future. I'll certainly be watching a lot of tutorials on it. Now, this one, I don't know why I clicked this. There is a new Space Marine thing. I don't think I meant to click that one. Oh, I know what I meant to click. Yes. There was one I wanted to talk about. This is the one I meant to hit. So, in this, this is the new White Dwarf that's coming out soon. And if you look right here, it says solo play rules for Age of Sigmar. And I'm very, very curious to see how that pans out. YouTube said you'd be live at 1. Why at 1? I'm still trying to figure this out. For some reason, it still thinks I'm like in Pacific Northwest time, even though I've changed everything on my computer. I cannot figure out what's going on. So sorry, bud. So yeah, I'm curious to see what the solo play rules are. Skaven versus Keratin Overlords battle report sounds iconic and awesome. And then you also get a whole bunch of little extras in this one. They do this every once in a while. They just kind of throw some extra stuff at you. And it's almost always in support of their side games. So Titanicus, Blood Bowl, Necromunda, Aeronautica Imperialis, which I still need to try. I'm very interested. Warcry, you get a character card for Jacob Bugsman, his descendant of Bugman. I love it. And then Middle Earth battle strategy game. You get a poster, and the other side is some kind of like wizard's duel where you can have Gandalf and Saruman punch each other in the face. Do the old man battle that happens like so epically, and only Peter Jackson could make two old men pointing sticks at each other seem dramatic. But it does seem pretty cool in the movie. So anyway, that is pretty much all the stuff that I wanted to point out. The other one was just pre-orders. Again, pre-orders for Broken Realms Marathi, as well as Blood and Pain, and all of these boxes. And if you've been following the story that I've been putting out this week, first of all, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It's so interesting that now that I've read the story, seeing these boxes, some of them are much more relevant to the narrative than others. However, I want to be clear that I don't know if these characters are going to be reoccurring throughout the Broken Realm series, or just because they were in this book means that this is all they get, kind of a thing. So I'm hoping that some of the characters make a return. Jay Dirthu, I believe he's in both. All they said was they're including a card for him to be in Warcry, not necessarily that he's only in Warcry. They did the same thing with Gotrek. He has rules in AOS too. And then they put out this little weird card for him in Warcry. Anyway, so like Van Breck's thing, he has an entire chapter where it's like, this is the force he has, and it makes total sense. And the same thing for, her name was Kraith, Drusa Kraith. These are the exact forces she had. But on the left side, like the Deepkin guy, he was barely in the book. And the Idolater Lord, he was also barely in the book. And we know he was riding a chariot, but like it wasn't like a big thing. And so it's just kind of interesting to be like, why that? I don't know. Probably because they wanted to showcase updated rules. And they did have rules in there for having a Lord on chariot and new Alapexes and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Very, very cool stuff. I like it. Honestly, if you grabbed this and like maybe one, maybe two of the Scourge Privateer styled star collecting boxes for cities, you would really have actually a very thematic army for that force, because that's what it was. It was Order Serpentis. What are they called? Can never remember what the name. Darkling Covens. I don't know why. It's always hard to remember that one. And then Scourge Privateers for the Har Curon army. Then of course there is Jacob Bugsman, Brewmaster General. I like that. That's a great title. So I love it quite a bit. And then there's like some some Space Marine stuff. Oh, everybody hold up what you're doing. Indominus playing cards are out, so we can stop wasting money with all these other side games, because the one that we've all been waiting for, poker with Indominus flavored cards, is out. So, yeah, that's all there really was for the news this week that I wanted to chat about. And to be honest with you, I didn't quite have a main topic for the day. I was up until late last night getting all these videos ready for this week. And so I didn't really have like a strong topic that I wanted to focus on. But instead, I just wanted to open it up to a discussion, and we're going to sit, hang out, paint if you'd like to join me, and just chat about kind of the things I want to do with my 40k army, my Flesh Eater Court army once it comes in. I still have to build it and everything. So it'll be a little bit. Let's see. What playing card throwing out AOS? Exactly. I didn't know I needed it until now. So what I'm going to do is go back to the downward cam. Give me a sec to readjust my light here, and then we can hang out and get some hobby done did. So like I said, I'm sitting here painting up a lovely, lovely Vanguard. And we're going to go ahead and get started on him. So I actually got my paints because I thought ahead this time, which is not normally my strong suit, but hey, it be what it be. What is your most hated faction? Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, if you guys have questions, throw them in there. Or comments about the news that we went through. Most hated faction. Gotta go. It's tough, because, like, to play against, like, I mean, I'm not talking lore or anything like that, or thematic or anything like that. As far as, like, actually playing against, I probably have to go Legions of Nagash. Now, that being said, in full disclosure, when I was trying to pick out my next project, I took a good hard look at Legions, because it's a faction that I want to love. I just don't like the way it's structured right now, and kind of the way they've broken down the book. I mean, it's cool. It is a cool book. Like, I'm not gonna lie, and I love some of the models and that kind of stuff. But the ones that I love, they tend to just be ancient. Like, I love the idea of this, like, endless zombie horde. I do not ever want to buy a single one of GW's current zombies, like the old ones that exist right now. Nope. Nope times 1,000. So, you know, that's kind of those things where it's like, I have no intention of doing that. Take over Mars. This boy is missing a foot. Do you have an extra foot? Because I don't. I haven't thrown away any of the boxes yet, so I'll take a look and double check. But so yeah, and that's the kind of thing where it's like there's just nothing to do for it except wait for new models to come out. Unfortunately, I know there's been a lot of talk about like vampires and that kind of stuff, and people are like, oh, hold out, maybe they'll come out. It's like, we have no idea when those are coming. I want to start building some stuff. Want to get some hobby done did. Let's see. Finally building my actual Warcry models. Nice. Anyone have a good source of bone bits that isn't just skulls? I don't know that I can think of one off the top of my head, to be honest with you. Like, just random bone stuff? Honestly, you can probably buy an Untamed Beast box and just cut a bajillion bone bits off of their weapons and armor and stuff. I mean, and they're all random. They're like random jaws and femurs and all kinds of weird stuff. That would probably, if you're just looking for random bones, that'd probably be my bet. Let's see. Rest in peace, Nurgle Army. We thought you'd be the chosen one. Yeah. No, it turns out once I took a little bit of a break and did that road trip to get here, I was like, you know what, man? Old Doug is back. I miss painting huge projects. I haven't done it in a while. And you know what? No regrets. Never any regrets. which confuses many people, but it is the way it is. It's the way of Doug, my friend. Leave only mold lines, take only memories. All right, so what's he got here? How would you rate Gotrek's model from 1 to 10? Gotrek's model. Honestly, I haven't read any of the books, so if you're asking, like, compared to like how he's described in the lore, I have no idea. I'll be super honest with you. But as far as how I would rate it, like just as a model on its own, I like it. I like that he's in that kind of like power pose, from the little I do know of his character, where he's like always asserting like dominance and control of a situation. I get that sense from that model in that specific pose, so I like that quite a bit. Question: what hopes for Broken Realms 2? Okay, yeah. Broken Realms 2. What would I want? Ooh. Well, man, what would I want? I kind of want to move away just for a beat from the elves, just or at least the dark side of the elves. You know what I mean, like in terms of like Marathi and Malarian, that kind of stuff. I want to take a break. We can focus on the new ones, like the Lumineth and that kind of stuff. That'd be fine. I do like at the end of the book, though, we actually get a little bit of a glimpse of what could be Malarian Shadow Elves, because somebody aids Van Brecht in his escape, which we'll talk about in the Aftermath video on Monday. I'll go into a lot more detail there. But essentially, what would I want? I want... That's the thing, it's tough, because on one hand, it's like, well, I want to know what Sigmar thought of Marathi taking Anvilgard, the consequences of those things, but at the same time, I also want to shift perspective, and I want to see that same narrative campaign style be done with other armies. Like, I would love to see, like, destruction go on the same path, in terms of... these realms are messed up and we're not going to take it anymore, kind of a thing, and just kind of go nuts and have their own little campaign book. That would make me so happy. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn, if I'm super honest with you. I know that I want to see the same thing in terms of like campaign support. Although, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I do think that the campaign section of Broken Realms is pretty weak. It's probably the one negative thing I have to say about the book is like the campaign sections that they put. So like not the rules that they added to the game, but the literal campaign section for replaying the stories in those games, or replaying that specific story. I think that even if you own those armies, it is incredibly specific on what they want you to take. Like there's just not a lot of wiggle room. And of course you and your opponent can just do whatever you want. That is always there. But I just thought it was so odd that, like, there's one of them where it's, if you're this army, you have to take 16 units with the Daughters of Cain keyword. It's like 16 units. That is so prescriptive. And yeah, it might fill up faster for some than others. For me, I tend to prefer more elite armies, so that would be harder for me than probably somebody else. But there's that kind of stuff where it's like the forces they describe are very exacting. You're like, wonder why you did that. I don't know, but honestly, the missions seem fine. There's a few of them I'm gonna borrow when I get back to doing my epic battles kind of a thing, where I talk about like, here's this lore snippet from a battle tome or a book, and we just talk about the forces that were involved in it. I like doing those quite a bit, just because it's a little easier on my brain, and quite frankly, just a little bit cleaner of content to do. Make sure I didn't miss any armor bits here. Give me one sec. I think we're looking pretty good. And so, yeah, Let's see what else we got. I like Manfred Undead because Beast Legion, all those. Yeah, I like some. Like I like Manfred. I like the Mortarks, all that kind of stuff. I love the idea of the Legion's book. It just doesn't grip me for some reason as an army. Are there any vampirates like from Total War? Not yet, but they've been heavily rumored. So I'm gonna give you a maybe. Is probably the best answer I can give you. Pretty much any Ossiarch Bone Reaper kit. That's actually a super solid point. If you're just looking for random body parts. What is your opinion on Retributors? They're so sick, but it seems like Stormcast players at large don't like them. Retributors. Those are the big boys with the hammers, if I'm correct. Just I don't know. I haven't heard. I haven't heard talking about them for forever. Honestly, I'm not in love with the basic Stormcast unit, like the actual like Liberator. However, literally everything else from that first wave of models, I love. Like I really do like Retributors and the Prosecutors, which they never really expanded too much on. What else did I like? I don't know, just a bunch of those things where it's like I love the Paladin style of model quite a bit. So yeah, I'm on board. I like them. A lot of people fell out of favor with them, not because they're bad by any means. They're great. They have great attacks and a profile, all that kind of stuff. The thing is, one, they're slow, and two, when the Sacrosanct stuff got released, people just immediately switched over to Evocators because they are essentially Paladins, but they also have extra stuff going on. They're wizards and they can shock blast anything that they're in combat with, all this kinds of cool stuff. And so I don't think it was like people were like, these are garbage. It was more just there are other options that they are looking at, kind of a thing. But I still very much like that first wave of Paladin models. I think are just absolutely cool looking. Let's see. What's your opinion on... Oh, sorry, I read that one. Just bought a 3,500 point Fleshier Court army for myself on a local buy-sell trade. Dang! What happened to your Lumineth? Oh, man. That was a while back. So what is it? Not too long before I moved, I think burnout's a strong word. But I just kind of lost my buzz when it came to army projects, and actually I tried twice to get myself back into it. Once was with Seraphon. I actually did have a little bit of Seraphon stuff that I was going to start painting, and it just wasn't feeling it, and there's nothing worse than trying to force yourself into a project that you're not enjoying, and so I got rid of those, and the same thing happened with the Lumineth. It was just the wrong time. And so I know that some friends of mine were looking to get into them, and so yeah, hot swapped for some other models and just kind of added to my collection that way. So that's basically what happened to them. I don't dislike the army or anything like that. There's nothing like that. But it just wasn't a good time for me, and I think I just needed a little bit of a break from like army painting, like specifically entire army project painting. Just because now that I've taken that break, with moving and the road trip and that kind of stuff, now I'm like, oh man, I want to paint this. So, yeah. And then I opted to go with Flesh Eater Courts because it's an army that I wanted to do for some time. And honestly, when people ask, like, what's your favorite army lore-wise, it is always Flesh Eater Courts. Just because even when I had my Nurgle, even when I was the most Nurgle, because the idea of the Flesh Eater Courts just thinking they're the good guys of every story and being absolutely horrific, I think is just a great touch. Something that stuck with me for quite a while. Let's see. Give me one sec here. So there's a lot of chatter. I'm getting lost in the questions and I'm falling behind. So what I'm going to do, because I fell behind, if I didn't answer your question, go ahead and ask it again, because my chat just jumped like 3 pages worth here. Have you ever thought about buying single models or kits to paint just because they're fun to paint? I am now that I have more room, but I just didn't have the space for that kind of stuff in my last place. But now that I have a little studio thing, I can do that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking about it. Honestly, I'd really love to paint a salon. I was also thinking about grabbing models that I would just want to paint just for me, and then throwing them up on eBay for charity. That kind of stuff. Because that was a big thing. I mean, people like to support and me, and also help the less fortunate in our world, and so it just seemed like a good thing. I did it with the Nurgle army when I sold it, and I was like, you know what, man, that was really cool. Like, I really appreciated that. Made me feel good to be able to be like, yeah, this is for charity. Help somebody else out. But that would allow me to basically, you know, paint whatever I want at any given time. Okay, here we go. Question: So you're finally going to the best army, Flesh Eater Courts? I am, yes. Let's see. Question: Care to share a teaser on upcoming video schedule after you finish Broken Realms Morathi content? Well, I still got to figure out what I'm doing, to be honest with you. I'm going to be doing just a few simple painting tutorials over like stone and wood, and then from there, that's the thing, is like, we know that there are more Broken Realms things coming, so I always want to leave my schedule just a little bit open, just to make sure that like I can just kind of like, you know, change my plans on the whim. But beyond that, it's going to be hobby hangouts, talking about the news. We're going to be doing lore videos on, let's see. On some of the locations that were brought up. So like, I have a whole thing from about Anvilgard that I got from the awesome people at Cubicle 7 who do the Soulbound RPG. We have the Varen Thax's Maw I'm going to do a whole video on. What else? Yeah, we're going to do that kind of stuff. Talking about locations, and then I've been pitter-pattering around it a bit, but I am going to start doing a little bit more 40k lore, which I know not everyone is super pumped about, but you know, I want to talk about stuff that I like and that interests me. And plus, honestly, there's a lot of channels out there that basically just read it like they're reading off of a Wikipedia page, and I don't do that. So I think I can bring something unique. If nothing else, I can bring positivity. Although I have been finding more and more positive YouTube channels regarding 40k. I will say it's gotten a little better since I last kind of tuned out. Do you think Nurgle needs more Cronenberg-type insect mutations? I know they have some, but they're largely separated across models. You know, I never liked the insect thing. I'll be honest with you. It never gripped me. I know it does for some people. More power to you. But no, never really got me. I always skipped those bits when I was building my guys. Okay. I'm just throwing down some, was it Rhinox hide for our base here. Are they anime models for painting? I'm sure I could get my kids excited to paint with them. If you're looking for anime style stuff, Tau in 40k is very like mecha. Woot 40k, hey, it's fun to talk about. Build your own factions. Problem with AOS is everything is very defined in comparison. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I got to think about that one for a hot sec, because I feel like there's a lot of freedom in AOS just because of the vastness of the realms. But I mean, I will say that I do believe that in 40k they've written themselves into a corner on some things. Like some factions like traditionally, Space Marines can only be men, even though that the new codex that I was just reading last night literally says nothing about that. So they have to work through some history things to be able to move forward. But I don't know. I don't know if I feel like AOS is more confined. I gotta think about that. Let's see. Do you have any thoughts or hopes on how the KO will be addressed in future Broken Realms books? I want a Skyport to come down. Wouldn't that be just epic if there was like one that had to be land-based, and then they can kind of maybe become a little bit more sympathetic to everybody else on the ground, not treat them all like second-class citizens or customers or whatever. I think that would be cool. And you don't even have to destroy the city, just have some way of bringing it to the ground, kind of a thing. Let's see. I want Slaanesh to have more cosmic horror mixed with creepy beauty. I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, I would agree with that. More cosmic horror. The likes of which has never been seen. Let's see, what do you think? Oh wait, silly question, here we go. Because I am painting right now, and probably I have just killed my Arcanaut with curling his arms the wrong way to paint it easier, any advice for a noob trying to cut and kit bash? I'm going to be honest with you, I don't do a ton of it. Simply because I typically buy models that I already like the way they look. So I don't just feel the impetus to. What I would say is kind of like with anything else, measure twice, cut once, in terms of like, oh, this guy's elbow is where I need to cut. Okay, measure out that kind of stuff. What else? Does anybody else have any advice? Like, I really don't, because I don't do a whole lot of kit bashing. Or even, I guess, kit bashing I do, but not so much like real conversions in terms of cutting things and that kind of stuff. I like when I see it done well. How about that? Can tell you that much. Let's see. Broken Realms would be a cooler name for the whole setting there than Mortal Realms. I would give you that. Yeah. I'll be honest. I think whoever is in charge of naming things, over at GW, misses the mark sometimes. Like, for example, why is it Warhammer Underworlds : Dire Chasm? Why isn't the game just called, when it came out, we were like, hey, you want to play Shadespire? Like, we all intrinsically, the name pops. We just like it. But, no, they went with Warhammer Underworld : name of the season. You're just like, what? That's the thing, is you gotta have a name that pops. You gotta razzle dazzle people before you can get them interested, That's why we like AOS over Age of Sigmar : Battles in a Mighty Age, or whatever the whole thing is. And yes, you have to say the colon. If you're going to say the whole name, you got to say it. That's one thing from the podcast Legends of the Painting Men that I love. They've said that multiple times. Just to compound your disinterest in this nerdy hobby. Let's see. What do you think Flesh Eater Court, the next Flesh Eater Court models are going to be? Because the old rumor engine teased a ghoul hand grasping a sword. Could be that. There were some people thinking that was like a vampirate or whatever, because everybody was always looking for a way for it to be vampirates. I don't know. I would I'd love a new ghoul kit. Just because it's older. I mean, it honestly, it holds up. It holds up better than some of the Skaven stuff. But, I don't know. Because I think it'd be cool if instead of like ghouls as we know them now, they're all hunched forward and that kind of stuff, that ghouls were people who were like mid-transition, so like they could hold weapons, real weapons, and they're slowly breaking, but they're not quite there yet. I think that would be really, really cool. Let's see. Do you think they'll expand the Sons of Behemoth models? Or do you think the current range is all there's going to be? I mean, eventually I wouldn't be surprised if they added like a few more options, but I would also add don't hold your breath. That's the thing, is whenever a book comes out, my default is this is what you got. And like when Lumineth came out and people were like, oh wait, that's all there is? Like, that's what you got. Narratively, they left it open for more to be added very easily, and it seems like they intend to. But there is a Lumineth battle tome with every unit in their army, with the exception, it annoys me, the Diarchasm guys aren't in there. I don't know why that annoys the heck out of me. My cat's clawing at the door. It's like, let me in. Let's see. Waiting for Doug to run out of AOS lore and do fantasy. No, brother. I would do 40k over fantasy, and then that well is deep. So Games Workshop started sending me 40k codexes. So I am going to start doing 40k lore, in my own way, in my own fashion, if you will. But I have no interest in. This train moves one direction. Maybe if they send me a whole bunch of that, whatever the new old world stuff is from their new game they're making, apparently. That we've all seen the logo, because that's all that exists. If I get some of that stuff, that'll kindle some interest, but that's about it. Because the thing is just like with some of those older things, where do you even start jumping in? It becomes a real hassle because there's just so much. I don't know. There's so much involved in like the history of all these things, and honestly, any time that I mention the old world, I get a slew of nasty comments from people. Because I made things wrong. Because it's kind of hard. There's Wikipedias that say different things, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, you seem to be really mad that I misplaced this one island. I'm not worried about it. There's one guy who like, take down this video, and because I mispronounced somebody's name. I was just like, no, bro. Let's see. Okay, got that. I'm just looking to see, make sure I'm not missing any glaring parts of his front end. Underworlds makes no sense because they live in the realms. Kind of like a half ghoul kit. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, with so you know how like with the Chaos Warriors, they had the old ones, which were very, they're cool looking, very Viking-esque and whatever, but they were very static just because because of fantasy battles, they had to be able to rank up, kind of a thing. Whereas the new ones take that same aesthetic just a step further, and they're much more dynamic, but the two mesh together very well. If you see an old Chaos Warrior and a current one, side to side, they look fine. Not even fine. I think they look great, actually, because I like that some are more just... some would have the personality of a stoic type person just trudging forward, which is what the old ones look like, versus some others which would lash out and be more dynamic. So I think the two actually complement one another very, very well. And they did the same thing with the ghouls and people who are like midway becoming the typical ghoul. I think that would be exceptional. Plus, it would just give us some more, normal folks throughout the realms, because so much of what we see is all these huge demigods and all these kinds of things. That just the only real human models we have are like free guild things who are like 15 years old and from a different setting. So I want some more humans. Even though they send you stuff, make sure you make content you're interested in. Miniac got stressed because sponsors sent him kits and he would paint or advertise. Then he didn't want to. Oh, no, I'm not worried about that. Honestly, no, I want to talk about it. I really do. Excuse me, I had a hiccup there. I'm more interested in any non-Space Marine thing. And it's just unfortunate that the way that they scheduled their releases, they did Space Marines and Necrons, and I think I'm going to start with Necrons because, quite frankly, they predate the other factions. So they actually have some history that happens before everything else. So I think that makes perfect sense. Start with Necrons, and then just do a big Space Marine thing, and then just random chapters here and there, because, like, I don't know. Because the way they stacked, if you don't know, their releases, they did Space Marines and Necrons, and then Space Wolves, Death Watch, which are just both variations on Space Marines, and then there's going to be like a Death Guard one, I think Blood Angels too, where it's just like they're getting all the Space Marine stuff out there, and it just happens to be the stuff I'm least interested in. But I want to talk about it, and honestly, like, and then there's more ways to cover those books than just lore. There is. Kind of like I did my video where I talked about how 40k codexes were changing for the better, and they are. Like, they're just more interesting. These newer ones are so much more interesting to read than the older ones, because I do still feel like the last edition codexes, which, again, most armies are still using, are much more rule books than they are get you excited for an army. Like, I think they were really just hold you over, make sure our gaming base and our community has updated rules that give them a little bit of fun, but I don't think those books show what 40k could be. And the new ones I do. Like honestly, if you don't like 40k, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Just take a beat. Go to any Games Workshop store and ask to see the new Necrons or Codex one, because they've changed the way the books are laid out, and they're so much more AOS-like. And honestly, that's all they had to do. All you had to do to 40k to make it interesting was make it more like AOS, which is just, that's how their business operates. They play off one or another, and they take ideas from some and drop others, kind of a thing. So I like it. The point system's so much more simple now. Even, people like to use points, but they just revamped it to make it cleaner, rather than being like, you have to play power level kind of a thing. No. They did a lot of good stuff. So I'm very, very, very happy about it. Let's see. I think I'm going to have like red and gold scales, like as his like ornaments right here on the sides. I think that would look really rad. Let's see. End Times was the best thing to happen to the old world in a decade. Ooh, that's a hot take. And Age of Sigmar is more fun than it ever was. Really wanted to see Egyptian stuff. What do you mean Egyptian stuff? Let's see. Oh, you mean as far as Bone Reapers replacing Tomb Kings? Yeah, I think that's the closest you're gonna get. And they honestly have more of like a Roman phalanx style of thing going on that I appreciate. But yeah, gaming zealots like that really turn people off from the hobby. Yeah, they do. But man, people are people, and unfortunately, sometimes people are crummy. And that just is what it is. And I don't want to be derogatory by any means. It's just the simple thing is just stuff changes, and some people are cool with that, and some people they invest too much into something that is bound to change. You know, it's the same thing with folks saying like, "Oh, there can't be female Space Marines." It's like, man, Space Marines aren't real, so it's just this publishing house's opinion. And if Games Workshop is like, "Hey, by the way, here's this Primaris chick kit," and that's literally what they call it, which is a terrible idea. You know what? Now there are female Space Marines, and that's just the truth. And that's just one example, but I mean, no, it's the idea. It's representative of my thoughts of like lore changes, stuff changes, and that's. I mean, honestly, when I talk about how much I love Warcry, I was talking earlier about. I love Warcry because it's the least amount of work to get the most fun memories and that kind of stuff, and I feel like if Blood Bowl does the same, it's going to be set up for success. The reason I think that that's important is because all of these games will go away, and all your friends, at some point, you will no longer play a game with them. Like, you're going to play a game with a friend, and you'll never know that it's the last time you'll play a game with them. And that's what's important. I don't care about balance. I don't care about, at the end of the day, being like right about lore and that kind of stuff. It's just, did you have fun? Did you make memories? Did you love people? Sold. Female Space Marines are canon? No, technically they're not. They've never been called out specifically. There's a big debate going online about that, so, because some people are very opposed to the idea of having there be female Space Marines, whereas I'm more like, if they wanted to add them, I don't care. I don't care. Plus, there are female Space Marine models in the 80s. I didn't know that. I really do. Maybe I'll make that a video at some point. I'm going to go into like the history of like the Games Workshop miniatures, because there's so many models that I didn't know existed. And like, who's really good about that is my friend Brent from Rerolling Ones. Like I'll see a model. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. He's like, yeah, that's like a re-rendition of, this obscure model from their catalog in 1986. And you're like, what? What? Where did you pull that out of? That factoid. But he's fantastic at it. And so seeing like some of the designs and stuff like that they've made in the past is really, really interesting, because it's interesting how, we were just talking about change. Games Workshop as a company has changed dramatically over 20 years in terms of, you look at some of their ideas and you're like, okay, well, it took at least 3 kilos of cocaine to come up with this, so that's cool. For 40K. Specifically, I was more thinking like, what is it? Like some of the chaos stuff, you're like, what? But on the flip side, some of it is extremely interesting. And so, like the Blackstone Fortress was a thing that was mentioned forever ago, and then they brought it back to life, both in a game and the story of the Fall Acadia. I don't know. There's just a lot of cool stuff there. We need female plague bearers. Oh, I agree. Well, it's tough because they're demons and they don't technically have gender or sex or anything like that. Like, I mean, honestly, I didn't notice it until Broken Realms Marathi, when they're talking about Glavius Sinheart, who is a herald of Slanesh. Really careful on them pronouns when it came to just, and I only point that out because I, by default, was using him and her. But the book, because demons are a thing. They're not people, you know what I mean? Like, you can't use, like, it's not a matter of what their, like, a preference or identity is. It's just, they literally are not anything. And it's such an interesting thing to think about, of just, what is a character almost without substance in a way. One sec here, I'm just getting the deep little part of the armor there. There we go. Let's see. AOS is great rules-wise, if you enjoy it. If you enjoy it, I don't think about newest OP Broken Rules. Played Squigs versus Scryer, and it was easily the most fun I've ever had. Oh, that's the best. I don't either. I can't. Honestly, I struggle to keep up with like what people are saying is like the new hotness, because it changes so rapidly, especially with like if you're talking like grand alliances. That stuff changes all the time. What are you painting? This is a Varangard, a singular Varangard for my buddy Craig. So yeah, I'm gonna brighten the armor up a bit, quite a bit actually. It's gonna pop, but this is just kind of getting the foundations of the trim all blocked out. I think he's gonna look red. So yeah, that's pretty much that's all that's going on in my world. Let's see. I only know Firmir from Hero Quest. Interesting. Do you think Firmir would be chaos or destruction? Well, they were up on Forge World for a little bit. Maybe they got rid of them. I thought they were destruction. Maybe I could be totally wrong. Honestly, they never interested me as a range. Like, just looking at the models, I don't know anything about what they actually are, like lore-wise. Let's see. Doom Rider, Chaos Champion of Cocaine. I want to say destruction since they are lacking faction as a whole. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm always interested in new armies. You know. There's multiple times where I held my finger over the buy button when it came to like the the evil dwarves. Legions of Asgore, that's what they're called. But then I realized, I was like, man, the model range, there's just not enough of what I want, and I don't like having to order stuff through Forge World. Because, I mean, honestly, when it comes to model kits, I like to be able to support local businesses or smaller independent retailers, and so, that would just take that entire thing out of the equation. Which is, it's important to me. Not important to everybody, and that's all right. But I have very few, like, this is a value and it shapes every way that I purchase everything, So if I got one, I gotta stick to it, Firmir are chaos. Thank you. Dictator Potato, love the name. Hey Doug, first time I've caught you live, just wanted to say a massive thanks. You're the reason I'm into AOS and Warcry, a longtime 40k player, and perhaps recently a total convert. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for the kind words. That makes my day. Yeah, I've been trying to keep up more and more in the comments since we've been getting a little more settled in here, and man, people are so freaking excited about what AOS is doing right now story-wise, and I love it. A lot of cool stuff happening. My assumption is that Broken Realms will continue for quite a while until 3rd edition drops. Because I think they're treating it a bit like the Psychic Awakening thing that happened with 40k, where it was a series of stories that didn't necessarily tie into one another. It was just like snippets from across the galaxy kind of a thing. And of course the realms are meant to be as equally vast and filled with, lore-making opportunities, just like the galaxy is in 40k. And so I think that's kind of the direction they're headed, where it's stories that may or may not be connected through specific characters, but in the end, it comes together to form the new edition. And now, factions stand differently, and so, maybe maybe it seems like right now there's no consequences in terms of Grand Alliances for Daughters of Cain and Marathi and all that, but when the new edition drops, they'll have like some, ally change or something like that. Where they can do those big sweeping changes into how army construction works. If from here can go to chaos if destruction gets the beastmen. Honestly, if there's a mystery from the launch of AOS that I still don't quite get, it is that one. I do feel like beastmen should have been in destruction. And it's more because, first of all, they predate, even in their own lore that they made in the Chaos Battle Tome, they predate Chaos really coming into the realm. So instantly I'm like, okay, so what does that mean about the nature of Chaos and Beastmen and all that kind of stuff? But then beyond that, there's just not enough that really separates them. Like, the way that they describe them, it just sounds like a destruction faction. And seeing how destruction is so low on factions anyway, in terms of like literal number of armies within it, like, just give it to them. Let's see. If you could change one thing in AOS lore or rules, what would I change? If I could change one thing in AOS lore or rules. I'm torn. I'm torn on a few ideas. Let me just run my ideas out there. One, I don't like gods being on the table, and that's something I've been pretty audible about. Because to me they don't feel godlike. Even your most broken, busted version of a Nagash or Teclis list, it doesn't represent what a god walking amongst mortals can do in any of these stories, and there's no way to. So I'm like, why even have them be on there? As far as like rule stuff goes, honestly, I'd really love for them to change Pile-In. What is it, Pile-In? Yeah, Pile-In, where you have to go near the nearest model and nearest enemy model, and it just gets messy if you get pinned by two things, and I don't like it. Because it breaks that immersion for me when it's like orcs go forward and punch, and then my opponent's like, orcs can't go forward and punch because they're too busy going in two different directions to also keep coherency. And you're like, well, that's just dumb. And that's probably my biggest one. And that, again, that's a minor one. That's a core mechanic of the game that can easily be rectified when they, work on the addition and that kind of stuff. So the thing is I almost don't like. One way in which I do think 40k champions over AOS is when it comes to melee combat. Like, even though which is weird because 40k is like made of gun. And by that, what I mean is, in 40k, melee is the range of weapons. Melee. And when Pile-In happens, it's super easy to calculate who's in, because it's like, if you're within half an inch of a guy who's within half an inch, boom, you're good to go. It's very simple, very straightforward. But in AOS we have weapon ranges, which does matter, and it is a very important aspect of a weapon profile. But with that comes the complication of, okay, well, now I have to get pulled in multiple directions. Who am I able to attack? It just kind of complicates things a little bit. So there's pros and cons to both sides of the coin, but that's what I would say. Not gonna lie, I think we need a plague drone with legs that just walks around. Oh, yeah. would be cool. Let's see. Try and get these little stars on his feet here. But that's a good question, though, if I could change a thing. Now, of course, I don't know the ramifications that has, right? Like, if we change the way pile-in happens, how does that affect certain armies? Because right now, like, honestly, it's my favorite rule on Alapexes is that they can shut down any kind of pile-in. Like, that's huge. Let's see. Not gonna lie, your videos on Flesh Eater Courts got me into Warhammer AOS. Not really into playing it since rules look a bit complicated, but I do enjoy painting some great models. Oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you. Honestly, the rules for Flesh Eaters really not that complicated. It seems that way at first. But what's nice about them is you can kind of learn at your own pace, because some of the options are very, very simple. Some of the options, you can kind of scale what you want in terms of the complexity of your army. If you can go with no wizards and kind of cut the whole spell lore out of your equation, and then just kind of come back to it later on when you feel more comfortable with other stuff. There are some good gems in that battle tome. Let's see. Where are we at? Okay, we're at an hour 15. I'm actually going to take a little bit of a break here. Do some house chores and stuff. But we made some good progress on this guy. Right now I'm just blocking out the colors, and then we'll come back around. We'll build up the bone color stronger, throw some weathering on the brass, and then of course start painting the actual mount, because he's not going to be that dark by the end of it. I'm going to go with Doombull brown, and then make some bruised flesh and gashes in his side, and I think he's going to look pretty stinking gnarly by the end of this whole thing. So I think he'll look cool. This is actually some of the most painting I've done between him and my Primaris Reaver there, my test model. This is probably the most painting I've done in the last month, and it feels so good to be back. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. I will answer one more question here before I go, and that is, Tridents, what are your thoughts on Warcry Catacombs? This week, Craig, same buddy who sent me this guy to paint, sent me basically most of Catacombs. He really wanted the Canaanites, so he took those, and I took everything else. And I will say I have not fully dove into the rules yet, but I do like what I see so far. In fact, there are a lot of comparisons made to Kill Team Arena, which took that game from being a three-dimensional thing with different boards and levels and that kind of stuff into a two-dimensional plane, and there was a lot of complaints that it sucked a lot of the fun out of the game. I do not think that's the case with Catacombs, because they have abilities that use the walls. Like, it's not just a strict, you don't get elevation anymore, but the terrain all matters the way it is. It's not just a matter of blocking line of sight. So I'll dive into it more. Trident, I will have a video that goes into more depth about my thoughts about it here pretty soon. And then give me like a couple weeks to get fully settled, everything set up, and I will start doing some battle reports for it. So I'm very excited for all of those things, and more to come. So friends, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I'll catch you next time, and happy wargaming.